My wife and her sister began signing back and forth about me, forgetting I learned sign language years ago. My wife Emma and her sister Michelle have used American Sign Language, ASL, as their secret way to chat for years, thinking I don't understand it. I actually learned ASL in college as an elective, but I never mentioned it to Emma because it never really came up. They would sign little comments to each other at family gatherings or when they didn't want others to hear. I always found it a bit rude, but I kept quiet about knowing ASL. Honestly, I figured if they were going to whisper in front of me, I might as well know what they're saying. This Thanksgiving, that decision of mine to keep my ASL knowledge private came back to bite them. We were at Emma's parents' house for Thanksgiving dinner with the whole family. Me, Emma, our 6-year-old daughter Michelle, Emma's parents, and a couple of other relatives. As usual, Emma and Michelle were signing to each other intermittently throughout the meal. I was mostly focused on my plate and making small talk with my father-in-law, not paying much attention to their side conversations at first. At one point during dinner, I noticed their signing become more rapid and intense. Michelle's eyebrows shot up and she gave a quick glance in my direction, which caught my attention. I started observing them out of the corner of my eye, trying not to be obvious. The first thing I clearly picked up was the sign for lawyer, followed by December. That alone made my heart rate tick up. I kept watching surreptitiously. Within a minute or two, I pieced it together. They were talking about divorce, specifically Emma's plan to divorce me. She was outlining it right there at the table. I saw signs about meeting a lawyer on December 10th, about an apartment she apparently had already secured, and about moving small amounts of money out of our joint account so I wouldn't notice. Michelle was nodding along like this was all normal. Then came the part that really hit me. Emma signed that she planned to file for divorce right after New Year's and then move out while I'm away on a trip in January. I take an annual week-long fishing trip every January, which she knows about and was apparently going to use as her window to move. She also signed something about my job, specifically a promotion I had been offered this past July. At the time, Emma urged me not to take that promotion, saying the increased travel and stress would be bad for our family, especially so soon after I lost my dad in June. Well, as she was signing to Michelle, Emma essentially admitted she talked me out of that promotion on purpose. The reason? Keeping my salary lower would make any divorce and support calculations simpler and smaller from her perspective. I felt a surge of anger realizing she had manipulated a major career decision of mine for her secret plans. I was in complete disbelief. My wife of 7 years, the mother of my child, was sitting next to me smiling and chatting in spoken English with others, while simultaneously signing to her sister about how she was getting ready to leave me and maximize her advantage. And she thought I had no clue. I decided I wasn't going to play along. Once I had processed enough and the dinner was winding down, I pushed back my chair and looked directly at Emma. In clear ASL, I signed, "I understand everything you're saying." Emma froze and her face went pale. Michelle nearly fell out of her seat. The rest of the table, who didn't know ASL, looked bewildered. They could tell something was happening, but not what. So I spoke aloud, calmly. "I learned ASL, Emma. I know you've been talking about divorcing me." The table went silent. Emma started to stammer, "It's not what you but I cut her off and basically laid it out. Emma has been planning to leave me and take our daughter. She's got a secret apartment and a meeting with a divorce lawyer. I just watched her sign all that to Michelle." Chaos erupted. Her mom went, "What on earth is he talking about, Emma?" Emma was red as a beet and could barely speak. I didn't stick around for a prolonged discussion. I just said, "I've heard enough and I'll be contacting a lawyer. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone." Then I walked out of that house without another word. That night I stayed at my brother's place. I told him everything. He was as shocked as I was, but being a great brother, he immediately switched into problem-solving mode. "You need to get a lawyer now," he said. He was right. I wasn't about to wait around for Emma to spring divorce papers on me. The next morning, Friday, I started calling divorce attorneys. It was tough to reach anyone over the holiday weekend, but by Monday I had an appointment set with a well-rated lawyer. I haven't spoken to Emma since I left that dinner. She texted me once saying we need to talk, but I didn't respond. As far as I'm concerned, if she wants to act through secret plans, we can deal with each other through lawyers from now on. Right now, I'm back at my own house. Emma is staying elsewhere for the moment, I think, with her parents, and getting all my documents and finances in order. I'm still reeling from the shock and betrayal, but one thing's for sure. Thanks to knowing ASL, I caught her. If I hadn't, she would have gotten the drop on me completely a month from now. Not gonna happen. I'll update when I know more. Update 1. The financial discovery. It's been 3 days since the Thanksgiving disaster, and I've been busy dealing with the fallout. I did end up back at our house, after a couple nights at my brother's to clear my head. The atmosphere at home is as you'd expect, beyond tense. Emma is still here for now, but we're avoiding each other. She's sleeping in the guest room and we've barely spoken a word. I told her bluntly that if she wants to communicate, it should be through our attorneys. She didn't argue with that. Following my lawyer's advice, I started digging through our financial records immediately. Over the past few days, I pulled all our bank statements for the last 6 months. Sure enough, I found exactly what Emma was signing about. There were numerous small withdrawals and transfers that I hadn't really paid attention to before. $100 here, $200 there, often with memo notes like groceries or gas. Added up, those transactions total about $8,400 moved out of our joint account over half a year. I also discovered a credit card account opened in Emma's name only, just a few months ago. I had no idea she had opened a solo credit card. It currently has about a $5,000 balance. I'm guessing she used that for expenses related to her secret apartment or to stockpile money without me noticing. I've made copies of all these statements and transactions for my lawyer. My brother helped me compile and document everything. We spent hours cross-referencing transactions. He's more tech-savvy, and even ran a quick credit report on Emma with her info that I know, which is how we found that new credit card. It's infuriating to see concrete proof of her siphoning off money, but at least now I have evidence. In the midst of all this, I got a phone call from my mother-in-law. That did not go well. Emma's mom basically chastised me for making a scene at Thanksgiving. She said I was out of line for airing dirty laundry in front of the family, and that I misinterpreted things. I don't know how I could possibly misinterpret what I saw, but sure. She implied I should apologize to Emma. I laughed out loud at that and told her I wasn't going to play along with their cover-up. I said, maybe if your daughter hadn't been conspiring behind my back, none of this would have happened. Her mom got indignant at that, so I ended the call. Frankly, I expected my in-laws to circle the wagons around Emma, and that call confirmed it. Fine by me. I have no intention of appeasing them. As for Emma herself, like I said, we're not really talking. She hasn't tried to explain or apologize. The only time we interacted was when she meekly asked if we could discuss things, and I replied, only through lawyers. She shrugged and went back to avoiding me. It's like we're roommates who barely exist to each other right now. On the legal front, I met with the attorney I hired. She was great, very no-nonsense. Her immediate advice was to protect my assets. On her guidance, I went to the bank and froze our joint accounts, basically requiring both signatures for any withdrawal, and I opened a new individual account for my paycheck going forward. I also transferred roughly half of the remaining joint funds into a separate account in my name. My lawyer said that since I can document unusual withdrawals by Emma, I'm within my rights to safeguard what's left. I also canceled our joint credit card to prevent further surprises. My lawyer is now fully aware of the situation, including Emma's secret plans and financial moves, and said we have strong grounds to hold her accountable in the divorce for any dissipation of assets. Well, apparently my decisive actions upset Emma. This morning, a sheriff's deputy showed up at my door to serve me with a temporary restraining order application that Emma filed. In it, she absurdly claims that I am financially controlling, and that she feared I would cut off access to money and retaliate against her. So she asked the court to stop me from making any changes to accounts. It's a ridiculous claim. The only money moves I made were to stop her from continuing to steal, and I have proof of why I did it. We had an emergency hearing via phone this afternoon, and the judge denied her request. My lawyer was prepared with the bank docs showing how much she'd been siphoning, and the fact that I still left more than half the funds accessible to her, minus what she took. The judge basically said this was a divorce matter, not something that warranted a restraining order, which is meant for true threat situations. Emma looked furious on the video call when that got shot down. So that's where we are. Emma tried to pull a fast one with the court, and it failed. I've secured our finances as best I can. I've hired a PI, private investigator as well, on my brother's recommendation, mostly to verify the details of that apartment and keep tabs on anything else Emma might be up to before we proceed. It might be overkill, but I want every advantage of information now that I know what she's capable of. Emotionally, I'm still angry and hurt, but I'm staying focused. I have a feeling things are going to get even more contentious, but I'm not going to be caught off guard. I'll update again when I have more info, possibly once the PI reports back or if there are new developments. Update 2. The apartment and the timeline. About 2 weeks have passed since Thanksgiving, and I finally have more answers. I went ahead and hired that private investigator. His findings confirmed almost everything I overheard and then some. In short, Emma's entire secret plan is now exposed. Secret apartment. The PI found that Emma signed a lease for an apartment back in August, about 4 months ago. Her sister Michelle is listed as a co-signer on the lease and as the emergency contact. So yes, the family was actively helping her set up a second home. It's a 2-bedroom apartment across town. According to the PI, it's fully furnished already. He even noted that some of our daughter's toys and a small kid's bed were in the second bedroom, meaning Emma was preparing to have our child live there part-time or full-time with her. She's been gradually moving stuff out of our house for months, furniture, boxes of personal items, during times I thought she was at work or running errands. Lawyer meetings. The PI also verified that Emma has been meeting with a divorce attorney regularly. He tracked her going to a downtown law office on 6 different occasions since September. That aligns perfectly with what I overheard. The December 10th appointment was just the next one. In fact, Emma had been claiming she was at a book club every Thursday evening, and it turns out those nights correspond to her lawyer visits. There never was a book club. It was all cover for legal prep. The investigator even got a few photos of her entering the law office building, so there's no denying it. Financial moves. While I was combing through bank records, the PI looked for any external evidence of financial shifts. He noted that in September, Emma bought some big pieces of furniture, couch, dining set, and had them delivered to the new apartment's address. He also witnessed Emma and Michelle moving boxes and smaller items on a couple of weekends. All this corroborates how she used that $8K plus of siphoned money to furnish and set up her escape apartment bit by bit. With this evidence in hand, I confronted Emma again. I didn't raise my voice or get aggressive. I simply told her I knew everything. The lease, the furnished apartment, the weekly lawyer meetings, all of it. She initially tried denial. I don't know what you're talking about, but as soon as I mentioned specific dates and even the furniture deliveries, she broke down crying. Emma finally admitted the whole timeline. She said she realized after my dad died in June that she fell out of love and didn't see a future with me. By late July, she decided to pursue a divorce. Michelle encouraged her to quietly consult a lawyer first, so she did in early September. By August, she had already signed that apartment lease so she'd have a place ready. Her parents, as I suspected, provided a chunk of money for the deposit and initial rent. She called it a loan. But let's be real, they were funding her. She confessed that yes, she deliberately urged me to decline my job promotion. Her reasoning, according to her, was that if I took the new higher-paying job, it might complicate the divorce. She mentioned both that it would mean more child support I'd owe, which apparently gave her pause, maybe out of guilt, and also that I'd be busier and harder to pin down during divorce proceedings. Honestly, her rationale is garbage and selfish either way. She actually teared up and said, "I'm sorry I interfered with your career. I was just overwhelmed and panicking." I just shook my head at that. I asked the big question. Why the hell didn't she just talk to me? Tell me she was unhappy or suggest counseling or something? Emma claimed she was afraid. She said she thought I'd react angrily or do something unpredictable if she brought up divorce, and that she believed secretly preparing would protect her and our daughter. For the record, I have never given her reason to fear me. I suspect she told herself this to justify her secrecy. She also said she didn't want to tear apart our lives until she had all her plans in place. I told her that was a pretty cowardly approach, considering the alternative was tearing it apart behind my back. She did apologize while sobbing, saying she was sorry for hurting me, but in the same breath she kept trying to justify it with, "I've been unhappy for such a long time and I felt trapped." It was a very mixed bag of remorse and self-justification. I also bluntly asked who all knew about this plan. She admitted that from the very beginning, her sister Michelle and her parents were in on it. They were the ones who helped her strategize and gave her the money for the apartment. Michelle co-signed the lease and helped physically move things. In other words, my entire in-law family had been helping her deceive me. That stings, but given her mom's reaction on the phone, I'm not surprised. One thing she swore up and down about was that there was no other man involved in her decision. I hadn't actually asked that yet in this conversation, but she brought it up on her own, saying, "I want you to know there's nobody else. I didn't cheat or anything." I nodded, but didn't really respond. To be honest, I hadn't seen evidence of an affair, but it did cross my mind that her sudden discontent and secretive behavior could involve someone else. She insisted it didn't, that this was about her unhappiness with our marriage, and not because she found someone new. I accepted her answer at face value for the moment, but I made a mental note to keep my eyes open on that front. Little did I know. More on this in the next update. By the end of this draining conversation, I told Emma that I had already filed for divorce. I wasn't going to wait on her timeline. She seemed a bit taken aback that I'd beat her to the punch, but she didn't get angry. She just quietly said, "Okay." We discussed in very general terms that we'll try to keep things civil for our daughter's sake, and then we mostly went to neutral corners of the house. So that's where things stand 2 weeks in. All of Emma's cards are on the table now. The betrayal is out in the open, and she knows that I know everything. It's strangely calmer at home now with no more pretenses, but it's the cold, distant calm of two people who are just done with each other. We're essentially just awaiting the legal process. I'm sleeping in the master bedroom. She stays in the guest room or is often out at her apartment. We haven't figured out a long-term living arrangement yet, but I suspect she'll fully move to her place soon. I'm hurt, I'm angry, but I'm also glad I have the truth. I'd rather see the situation clearly than be lied to. My lawyer is preparing for the next steps. There will be some hearings in January after the holidays. I'll update again when something significant happens, possibly sooner if I discover any more surprises. I really hope there aren't any left, but we'll see. Update 3. The real reason. I wasn't sure I'd need another update before the divorce was underway, but I got some news that sheds even more light on this mess. A mutual friend of ours, I'll call him Dan, reached out and said he had something to tell me. We met up in person, and he dropped a bomb I wasn't expecting. Emma has likely been seeing her ex-boyfriend Tyler behind my back. Dan told me that back in September, about a month before all this blew up, he saw Emma out at a restaurant with a man who wasn't me. They looked quite cozy, leaning in, laughing, even what looked like some flirty touching. Dan casually swung by their table to say hello. He knows Emma, and the guy's name was dropped as Tyler. Emma looked startled when seeing Dan, and according to him, she was oddly nervous during that brief interaction. Dan didn't tell me at the time because he wasn't sure what he'd seen and didn't want to stir up drama if it was innocent. But after our Thanksgiving incident, he put 2 and 2 together that something was definitely off, so he felt he had to tell me. As soon as he said Tyler, I knew exactly who that was. Tyler is Emma's college ex-boyfriend. I also learned from Dan that Tyler moved back to our city around July and, get this, started working at the same company as Emma. I recall Emma mentioning a new hire named Tyler at her job months ago, but I never connected the dots that it was that Tyler. She certainly never elaborated. Well, apparently since Tyler's return, Emma and he have been spending a lot of time together. Dan has a friend at their company who observed that Emma and Tyler often have lunch together and are awfully chummy. Armed with this info, I checked our cell phone records. We're still on a family plan. Sure enough, starting in August, I see hundreds of texts and many phone calls between Emma and a number that I now know is Tyler's. Late night calls, frequent daily messages. It's pretty damn telling. I confronted Emma with this evidence. I asked her flat out if she was involved with Tyler. At first she tried to deflect. We're just friends, and I didn't tell you he was back in town because I thought you'd be jealous. I wasn't buying it. I laid out the pattern of communication I found and the fact that a friend literally saw them on what looked like a date. Emma finally broke down and admitted that she and Tyler reconnected over the summer and that she developed feelings for him. She claims it started out platonically, then turned emotional. She swore up and down that nothing physical happened before our separation except for 2 kisses. She was very specific that they kissed twice, once in September and once in October, as if that makes it so much better. She also insists that her decision to divorce wasn't because of Tyler, but that seeing him again made me realize what was missing in my life. Honestly, whether they slept together or not by that point feels almost irrelevant to me now. The emotional betrayal and the secrecy are more than enough. I told her as much, that striking up an intimate relationship with an ex while still married to me is a huge betrayal, physical or not. She just cried and said she was sorry and that she felt drawn to Tyler because he reminded her of who she was before marriage and motherhood. The whole thing just made me feel sick. I then made it clear to Emma that this pretty much annihilated any remaining goodwill. I told her I would be informing my lawyer about this development. My state is no fault for divorce, but documentation of an affair can still influence negotiations, and I sure as hell will make sure this is known. She got defensive and said, "Our marriage was over in my heart long before Tyler and I ever talked outside of work." Maybe that's true from her perspective, but it doesn't excuse lining up a new guy while living a lie with me. After this confrontation, Emma has all but moved out to her apartment full time. She comes by the house only to see our daughter, and even that is usually when I'm not around. We're kind of doing an informal time sharing until legal arrangements are in place. Fine by me. So there it is, the real reason, or at least a huge factor, in why Emma checked out of the marriage. She's effectively already in another relationship. In fact, I suspect the plan all along was to get the divorce sorted quietly and then immediately start her new life with Tyler. That's basically what's happening now, except all the quiet secrecy is gone. I've let my lawyer know about the affair. We'll see if it helps when we get to settlement discussions. Even if not, I'm personally satisfied that this will dispel any notion that Emma was just an unhappy wife, bravely striking out on her own. There was a lot more to it. Our divorce court date is coming up in a few weeks. I'm beyond ready for it. I want this over with. I'll save details for the final update, but I can say that I'm going to pursue a fair split and a custody arrangement that puts our daughter first. Given everything that's happened, I feel confident in my position. I'll update once the divorce is finalized. Almost there. Update 4, the divorce settlement. The divorce is now officially finalized as of this week. It's been about 6 weeks since everything exploded, and we've managed to reach the end of the legal process relatively quickly, thanks to a lot of preparation and evidence on my side. I'm relieved to say the outcome was very fair to me. Here are the key points. Spousal support, none. Emma's lawyer floated the idea of her receiving alimony, claiming that I had the potential to earn more. They referenced the promotion I turned down, and that she deserved support. That went nowhere. My lawyer presented evidence of why I turned down the promotion with Emma's involvement and highlighted that Emma is fully employed and capable of supporting herself. The judge saw through Emma's ploy and denied any spousal support. In our state, a 7-year marriage with both parties working typically doesn't result in alimony anyway, and certainly not with this context. Division of assets. We essentially split marital assets 50-50, with adjustments due to Emma's conduct. Remember the $8,400 she secretly moved out of our accounts? The judge treated that as an advance to her from marital funds. In the settlement, that amount was credited against her share. In plain English, she had to give up an equivalent $8,400 in assets to balance things out. She wasn't happy about that, but it was only fair. She doesn't get to profit from sneaking money away. We also discovered during the process that her parents had given her about $12,000 to fund her secret apartment, first and last month's rent, deposit, furniture, etc. The court considered that a personal gift to her, not a marital asset to divide. But it did mean she came into negotiations with a bit of extra padding on her side. Perhaps because of that, or just because the judge didn't sympathize with her, I ended up with a slightly larger portion of our remaining joint savings to make the overall split equitable. House. I kept the house. This was a point of contention only briefly. Emma's lawyer initially suggested I buy out some marital portion of the home's equity, but my lawyer shut that down fast. I owned the house outright before we married. I inherited it, and it was never in both of our names. It was not subject to division. The judge confirmed the house is mine alone, so I'm still living in my home, which is a huge relief. It's also our daughter's home, and I'm glad she can continue to live here with at least one parent. Child custody. We agreed to a joint custody arrangement, but I am the primary residential parent. In practice, our daughter will be with me around 60% of the time, and with Emma 40%. Given the circumstances, Emma didn't fight me on this. I think even she realized that her attempted sneakiness and the fact that I've been the one maintaining stability gave me the stronger position for primary custody. Our daughter is young, and we both want her to have a consistent routine, so we worked out a schedule that we hope is smooth for her. We'll revisit and adjust as needed as she grows up, but for now, this is the plan. As for child support, with our incomes being fairly similar and the custody split not far from half, neither of us will be paying significant child support. We're more or less each responsible for expenses when our daughter is with us, and we'll split big costs like school or medical stuff. That's fine by me. I wasn't out to gouge Emma for money. I mainly wanted to be sure I have ample time with my kid. Some other notes. Emma kept her personal car. I kept mine. We each keep our own retirement accounts, and she took over the lease of her apartment, obviously. Essentially, besides dividing the joint bank account and a few assets, we're disentangled. The judge did make a pointed comment during the final hearing. He said something like, "It's clear this divorce could have been handled with far less drama if both parties had been transparent. Deception by one party caused a lot of unnecessary conflict here." He didn't name names, but everyone knew he was referring to Emma's antics. She stayed quiet, but I could see she was embarrassed. For me, that was a small moral victory, an authoritative confirmation that her approach was highly inappropriate. After court, I can't lie, I felt an immense sense of relief and vindication. I walked out of there essentially getting what I wanted. My house, a fair share of assets, no ongoing payments to my ex, and most importantly, a solid amount of time with my daughter. All of Emma's scheming really gave her no advantage in the end. If anything, it backfired and may have swung a couple things in my favor. Emma, of course, is now free to do whatever she wants, and she has. As expected, Tyler is very much in the picture. From what mutual friends have hinted, and what I glimpsed before blocking Emma on social media, Tyler has essentially moved in with her. They're publicly a couple now. It is what it is. I have no intention of engaging with that or with any of her family anymore. In fact, one of the first things I did when the divorce was final was change the locks on my house, just for peace of mind, and scrub my social media and contacts of Emma and her relatives. I'm focusing on my family and friends who stand by me. Looking back on this whole saga, it's astounding how things played out. In the span of about 2 months, I discovered my wife's elaborate betrayal, flipped the script by getting ahead of her plan, and ended up with what I feel is a just outcome in the divorce. It was one hell of a ride, and not one I'd wish on anyone, but I'm glad I trusted my instincts and my ASL skills when I did. Now I'm looking forward. I'm going to continue being the best father I can be. My daughter is young enough that I hope she won't remember much of the turmoil from this period, and I'll do everything I can to give her a loving, stable upbringing. As for me, I'm planning to get some therapy to work through the anger and hurt so I don't carry it forward. I'm also reconnecting with friends and hobbies I neglected during the chaos. This will be my last update. The marriage is over. I got my closure in court. In the end, Emma got the freedom she wanted, along with Tyler by her side. And I got my freedom too. Freedom from lies and deceit. It may not be the happily ever after I once imagined, but given the circumstances, I'll take this ending gladly.